Welcome to another instalment of Rig of the Month. This time round I'll show you how to tie the ultra popular blowback style rig. Now if you read a lot of magazines or you've watched quite a few carp fishing videos or even been through a number of people's tackle boxes whilst out on the bank, then no doubt you'll have seen this rig in action because it is that popular. So let's have a look at how to tie it. I'll be tying this rig using a coated braid. Now you can use any of the coated braids that are on the market, there's loads to choose from. I'm going to use some 15-pound crested mantis. But start by stripping off the coating from the last 4 or 5 inches of braid. Obviously the amount you strip off is going to be dependent on how long you want your hair to be and sort of your hook size, bait size. But 5 to 6 inches is a good starting place. Okay, so now we have some coated braid and then the exposed supple braid at the end. Then, taking a boilie needle, tie a small overhand loop in the end of the exposed braid, which is going to form the end of your hair. Like so. And then trim off the tag end, nice and close to the knot. Next is to remove the length of braid you want from the spool itself. So depending on how long you want your hook link, obviously depends on how much you're going to strip off. But for this, I'll take in all about a foot. Just remove that from the spool. Put the spool out of the way. The next step is to take your hook bait. And for this I'm using a standard bottom bait boilie straight out of the bag. Using a baiting needle, carefully throw it onto the exposed braid and then trap that in place with a boilie stop. Of course, if you don't have any boilie stops, a piece of stiff rig material or old tubing or even a piece of stick will work just fine. Just something to stop the boilie from sliding off the braid. You're going to need to get a small rig ring. I prefer the circular rig rings, although you can get them in an oval shape as well. It's just a personal preference. And carefully slide that rig ring onto your hook link, all the way down to your hook bait. And secure that ring in place with a simple overhand knot. Now if you get the positioning wrong, say you tighten the knot down and the ring's a little bit too far away from the bait or a little bit close to the bait, you can actually put a baiting needle into the ring and sort of slide it up or down the braid at this point. So let's just move that a little bit closer. So once you've got your ring in the required position, a couple of millimetres away from your hook bait, tie a second overhand knot just to lock it in place. Like so. So now that ring's locked securely in place, 2 to 3 millimetres above the hook bait. Then take your chosen hook pattern. For this bottom bait rig, I'm going to use a long shank hook, which, as the name suggests, means it's got a slightly longer shank than your standard hook pattern. Thread that onto your hook link, making sure the braid passes through the back of the eye towards the point. Slide the hook down the hook link, and then place your rig ring, which you've trapped in place, on the braid over the point, like so. So it now sits on the hook itself. Now position that ring opposite the barb. So it's just at the bottom of the shank where the hook starts to bend round. And then, using a knotless knot, which is detailed elsewhere on this website, just tie that hook into position. So that now your rig should look like that. The final step is to take a couple of millimetres of shrink tubing, slide that onto the hook link, and then down over the whipping and the eye of the hook, like so. This isn't an essential part of the rig. Some people like to use the shrink tubing, others don't. I'm a big fan of it because once it's shrunk down at a slight angle, I believe that it helps the hook to turn and find a hold in the carp's mouth, which is what we're looking for the rig to do anyway. So anything that helps that process, in my eyes, has got to be a good thing. And then, holding the rig over the steam from a kettle, you need to shrink the tubing down like so. Note that it's shrunk at a slight angle, so at the end of the tubing is bending in towards the point of the hook. And that's the blowback rig. With the benefit of it is that the hook bait can now slide up and down the shank as it's on that ring, which, if a carp takes the rig into its mouth and tries to eject it, means the bait can slide down the shank and the hook will exit the mouth that way, so the point is likely to find a hold. Unlike if the hair was trapped in position on the bend and the fish tried to eject the hook, it turns the entire thing round using the weight of the hook and will eject the hook that way. Bend first out of the mouth, and the hook's got no chance of finding a purchase then, and the chances are the fish is going to get away with it. So there you have the blowback rig. It's well worth trying on your next session. Join me next month when I'll show you how to tie my favourite rig of all time, but I'm not going to tell you what it is, so you'll have to join me then.